was, who is it? So we have a lot to go over today, and we have a lot of time constraints that we're doing. So we are going to start and pause a bit today. But before I get started, I'd like to recognize Dr. New here with us as our state board liaison, and I don't think I see any other elected officials. So we are going to get right into the bill hearing for our bill with one of the neutral testifiers, or conferees on WebEx. And this one is kind of a fun for me because congressional spouses don't often get a chance to see each other in a professional setting. So we'll start with her, then when she is done, we will go through our traditional normal opening things such as leftover items from yesterday, our discussion topic for today, and bill introductions. Erica, are you there? And we have 3 minutes for you. We have 3 minutes for you. Welcome to education. It's so wonderful to see you this way.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Chairwoman Estes, Vice Chair McNorton, Ranking Member Stogstill, and members of the committee. Would you like me to go ahead and get started?
Yes, please.
Fantastic. As the chair stated, my name is Erica Donalds. I am the chair of Education Opportunity at America First Policy Institute. Been working with the Trump administration as well as Secretary McMahon and her team on implementing some of the agenda there. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, nonpartisan institute. We conduct research and develop policies that put the American people first. And when it comes to education, AFPI aims to empower parents to select the learning environment that works best for their children. The initiatives advanced in HB 2468 accomplish two important goals, both of which I believe will significantly expand parental choice for Kansas families. And today I'm going to focus my testimony around the provisions of the bill allowing for Kansas to participate in the federal education freedom tax credit, which will permit nonprofit organizations to provide educational scholarships to nearly all Kansas children at no cost to the state. The Federal Education Freedom Tax Credit, created in the Working Families Tax Cut Act, gives states an opportunity to expand education freedom, and we applaud the president's decision to sign it into law last summer on July 4th. This is the first time that the federal government has established a tax credit incentivizing K-12 scholarships. This is a historic step towards school choice for every student, every state, could potentially be, since it is non-capped, the largest expansion of school choice in the history of the country. This law allows taxpayers who pay more than $1,700 in federal taxes to get a dollar-for-dollar reduction in their federal tax obligation by contributing those funds to a nonprofit scholarship granting organization that will use those funds, not necessarily in $1,700 increments. They can pull those funds together to offer scholarships for private school tuition, tutoring, homeschooling expenses, special education services, books, supplies, and more. But SGOs can only fund students in the states that affirmatively elect to participate. That's what's so important about the consideration of this bill today. States that opt in will effectively give their residents a choice: either send $1,700 to Washington, D.C. to fund the federal government, or redirect $1,700 to an SGO that expands education opportunities in your state. And I would choose the latter. Because scholarships will be funded by private donations, the decision to participate in the credit will not cost state governments a dime. Residents of states that decline to participate can still make donations to claim the federal tax credit, but the donations would go to SGOs in other participating states. So that's important to understand, that if Kansas does not elect to participate, for example, Kansans can still make those charitable contributions for that dollar-for-dollar reduction in their federal taxes, but those funds would not be able to be used for Kansas students. They would be able to be used, however, in other states for some of these expenses. We believe, of course, that Kansans charitable contributions should remain in state supporting local students and not sent to other participating states.
Thank you,
As
and you are out of time. Thank you so much. But we're a committee that likes questions, so we're going to have you stand for a few
Absolutely.
questions. Excellent. Do I have questions for our conferee? You guys are never this quiet. Okay, Erica, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate your time today, and enjoy the beautiful Florida weather, because we're expecting Snowmageddon 5.10 that's coming up.
Thank you so much for having me, and I would offer up AFPI for a resource for anything that the committee members need as you're considering this legislation.
Thank you very much. Okay, as I said earlier, after our first conferee, we would jump back to our normal procedures. So the first thing that I'd like to ask for are bill introductions. I think this is our first day without any bill introductions. Our next order of business will be to welcome back Representative Ballard. We're going to think that you're one of us. We know where your heart is on education, and I think we think of you that way.
Oh,
anyway.
thank you so much. I try to be quiet and just listen a lot, but I'm enjoying being back, so thank you so much. And if I come in late, it's because I still have to see other people and fill this in for when, but thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So we have a few unfinished items from yesterday. One of them was to give the State Department of Education a chance to respond, but I think Dr. Harwood is in. Oh, he's here. Okay, very good. Dr. Harwood.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, sorry I couldn't be here yesterday. I was in, I think I was in welfare reform yesterday. So I know there were a list of questions from yesterday that Gabby was able to put together a memo on. So I just wanted to kind of run through that very quickly and see what questions you have. So what I'll be focusing on is what the State Board of Education has done as far as literacy training, mostly in the form of letters. The most important thing is that by July 1 of 2028, anyone who's trying to get licensed to do one of the positions that's in the middle of the page has to have a seal of literacy in order to obtain that license and to be appropriately licensed to teach those. So then there are different ways that you can get the seal of literacy. The first group under state-approved trainings, you'll notice that there are 5 or 6 of them there. So you can take an approved training. I'll talk more about letters, which is the one that's been used the most, but you'll also see in there the Foundations of Science of Reading 1 and 2, which is what you were talking about with the blueprint. There's also a testing opportunity. So there are 3 different tests that current or aspiring teachers can take to show that to demonstrate their understanding of the science of reading. And so when you get to the next page, it's how many people currently have a seal of literacy. So this just means that if it's somebody that we can get data from, so letters is one of them, because we can get, since we're paying for that, we can get data back about that. So we do this monthly, found out how many people have completed. We are getting information from the Board of Regents, so we know how many have taken the foundations class, and then the tests that are completed, we get that information. Some of the other training sessions, we have to wait till for somebody to send us something, and so those don't get updated as quickly. So you'll see that currently there are 494 early childhood out of 1,470. I will tell you that the 1,470 was the number of people that were listed in a position last year that would require the seal of literacy by 2028. So 494 out of 1,470 is 35%. For elementary teachers includes special education, 5,423 out of 14,645 or 36%. School specialists, 246 out of 723 or 34%. And then for administrators, 294 out of 1,461, which is 20%. So that's if you look down, the breakdown is 511 have come from the foundations class, 1,022 have come from testing. What I'll point to is in the middle there, it says 446 initial teaching licenses. So about half of the tests, people that are testing out of it, are incoming teachers. So that's an important, so there's only about half of that, about 500 current teachers that are taking the test to get to C-level literacy. And that would be somebody that may have taken letters earlier in their career, didn't want to do it again. The versions changed, so we weren't accepting that training, but they could demonstrate that they still had the understanding by taking a test. And for current teachers, the state board was paying for one test for them to test out. Then when you get into letters training, using ESSER funds, the state board, when we get done, will spend about $25 million in federal funds on ESSER training. And this was been available to anybody in an accredited public or non-public school. And we also made it available to members of higher education faculty to do that. The next part, in the next paragraph, it talks about 300 letters local licensed facilitators. So what we've also done is for any district that had more than 500 students, we gave them the opportunity to send somebody for further training so they could actually be a letters facilitator trainer. And this was what we're trying to do for the future, because we think we're going to have our teachers that come from Kansas colleges will already have to take the test to get licensed, but people coming from out of state wouldn't have the same opportunity. So there will always be some need for letters facilitation. So if you had more than 500 students and then it was graduated, how many trainers you could get based on the size of the district. Now you may know that our median district size is about 500. So that means half the districts didn't get one. And so we're working with service centers and training for people in service centers to actually provide that training in that situation. If you turn to the next page, it's more specifically about letters. You can see that there are 14,470 people in the elementary education version, so that would be what the teachers are taking. 6,523 have completed the training, and there are currently 7,819 that are still in training. For early childhood, it's 790 that have completed and 274 in training. And then for administrators, it's 204 and 822 that are in training. The other thing I will say is that we are currently, ESSER is wrapping up. And so we're taking all of our other contracts that didn't spend funds, and the state board just approved last week an increase to the contract with Pittsburgh State. And so when we get done, we'll have about 5,500 more licenses that will be able to be used over the next several years to continue to train people. And we reduce the cost to the district for the training by having trained the trainers that actually could do some of that training.
Thank you. Questions for Dr. Harwood? I believe one of the questions yesterday, do you have any sense of what our fail rate is on taking the test?
So in here, so like the ETS test or one of the tests that's not letters, pass rate is about 89%. And I would say that the national average is about 74%. So we actually have a really good pass rate for that. Except for an anomaly in the summer, our pass rate for letters training, which you have to get 80% to pass, is about 97%.
Thank you. And when a person does not pass the test, we're not paying, are we or are we not paying for them to go through additional training, or is that then become on them?
So because what we think of as a anomaly with the testing, because we saw our pass rate plummet at one point, we are actually negotiating with letters for a retake for those people during that time, and then actually looking at the ability for a retake without retaking the course. Letters policy typically is if you don't pass and you have to retake the course. The issue with this is that letters doesn't see this as they don't really even care if you take the test, it's the training. We were the ones that put in the accountability for paying attention to the training. And so that's why we try to make it so that there is one retake available if you don't pass one or either of the end of unit tests. There are 2 units, you have to pass 2 different tests.
Thank you. Any other questions for Dr. Harwood? I see Representative Getz, Stogsdill, and Chauncey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Dr. Harwood, for being here today. I just had a conversation over lunch that was around, the pandemic happened and something happened to nursing that we just never had happen in our country. So then we bolster up and we try and train nurses pretty quickly. And so then some of that training takes pretty easy. Some of it is, well, we need to do some more. We need to help them more because their training process was maybe a little quicker or a little different because we readjusted. I see just the potential for the same possibility on this of, yes, you passed a test, yes, you did your training, but the proficiency, I mean, if we want to do limited, basic, proficient, and advanced, is there any kind of correlation from the test or the assessment that you're doing at the end that you can say, how long is this training going to last before there needs to be some more? And is that in their follow-up training just through school districts, or kind of how is that to where we can make this stick as long as possible?
So from our perspective, the training was the necessary first step. The next part is implementation. And so if we train teachers on the science of reading and we never do anything more, we've probably wasted $25 million. So the next step that we are working on is how do we help districts, and this is part of why we have the training for administrators as well, is that now how do you put that into practice in the class? And so that's the next part that we are working on, is transitioning from what we're in now, which is the training phase, making sure everybody has the basic knowledge, to the implementation phase. And then I think from there, when we look at where we see problems with implementation, we'll have a better idea of what additional training would be required. But if we want to, training somebody about this will not immediately raise test scores. You actually have to change what you're doing in the classroom. That's what will make a difference with student learning, and that's the next phase.
Thank you, Representative Stogsdill, Chauncey, Wolf, and Brantley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good presentation. My question is, are private school teachers required to attain this level of expertise?
So teachers in an accredited non-public school are required to be licensed, and so the same licensure applies, which is why the letters training was extended to accredited non-public schools. So in a non-accredited private school, it's not the same. They don't have to be licensed. They are licensed the same way.
Okay. Are the statistics that we're seeing here, does that include the accredited private school people?
Yes, including the number of people that, because the accredited non-public schools also do a licensed personnel report. So those numbers are in there, are the number of people that we need to get trained. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Chauncey?
So thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple, you guys collaborate with the State Board of Education, correct? You guys work on the information share data?
So partly in many ways, we're governed by the State Board of Education, so yes.
So just a quick question. Your data shows that we need 18,299 teachers to get this by, what's the date, by 2028?
So
2030?
after 2028, you can't relicense or become licensed without the seal of literacy, so yes.
Okay, and the only reason I asked is because Dr. Lane came in yesterday and said we need 18,698 people with these certifications, or with these seals, excuse me. And I'm just wondering why the data is different. Is it just because you guys aren't sharing the data, you're not working together? I'm just curious as to what that is.
I think I didn't catch your second number, but it was 18,299 and 18,000 something else. Yeah, so I believe that we share the exact same data. It could have been based on what year the data came from, or licensed personnel. If you just said around 19,000, you're probably in good shape. The state board is, when we get done, we'll have 22,000 opportunities to take letters. And so the other part I would say is that that's based on this year. I don't know how many people are going to retire between now and 2028, how many people are going to change positions. And so the number that in the end will be higher because the same people aren't going to stay in those same jobs forever.
I guess my point is just that why the data is different. If we're working together for the education of our state, that we're not sharing the same data, we're not utilizing the same data?
So, I mean, it could have been as much as a typo in there, or we share the same information with the Board of Regents when asked that question. Part of it would be is when you take the data poll, because it could be different next month.
A short answer to the question might be that it's something that's constantly changing because, okay, Representative Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. When they take these letters and pass these letters tests, what is your pass-fail rate? Is it 60%, 70%? What is a passing score?
So 80%, you have to score an 80% or higher on the test. And except for this anomaly over the summer, our pass rate has been about 97%.
Very good. I have one more quick question.
A quick one.
Are you familiar with the SGOs that the first conferee was talking about? And getting that $1,700 credit, is that something, can it also go to public schools since they're nonprofit? Or is it only for private schools?
It's only for private schools.
Let's come,
For both.
why don't you save that question for the revisor once we get on that bill, because we're just trying to finish up yesterday. Thank you. Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today, Dr. Harwood. How long have we been doing the letters or blueprint for literacy?
So the blueprint for literacy was passed as part of the 2024 legislation.
So essentially our second year. I'm really concerned that over the last year with the drop in the cut score, that we have spoiled that data from year one of the blueprint for literacy, and we will not be able to compare year one with year two because of the difference in the cut scores, which concerns me then. Are we starting over this year with the cut score data and moving forward, or what do we do with year one?
So I don't report on the blueprint for literacy, so I'm trying to, the LETRS training is to improve reading across the board. And so you can look at the amount of proficiency. There is a concordance table, so you could do some rough estimates of change over time. It's comparable. And so you could look at that. I think that it's also important to know that the training that's been going on in the last 2 years is going to take some time to actually show up as improvement. So even looking at this as the first year is not out of the question.
Thank you. So I guess, and I said blueprint for literacy, but I'm talking about the ELA assessments, using that as data to drive whether or not we're making improvements. We can use FastBridge, but I don't believe FastBridge, I mean, it would give us some data, but it's an at-risk assessment, not looking at our overall.
So, so one of the things is that, so FastBridge measures your risk potential. And so we certainly could be looking at a decrease in risk potential over time. It would be another measure. FastBridge, so the state assessment is much more standards-based. A lot of the screeners are more skills-based. LETRS is really about skills and teaching reading skills that then translates into mastering standards. So
We'll be having FastBridge come next week, so if we want to get into a deeper conversation about what does FastBridge offer and what is it intended for, I think that's a good conversation. I'm going to go to Representative Hubert, and then we are going to move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I know even yesterday, the goal with Blueprint for Literacy is trying to even improve the communication with the regions and the Department of Education. And I know there have been steps taken. Where we're at right now, what do you think is the one thing that we can help encourage to continue to improve that? Because I think there is still room for improvement in how we're making it more seamless and going from K-12 into the regions.
So, I think that, so yes, there's always room for improvement in communications between agencies. That's always been the case. I think one of the things we're looking at is we're trying to solve the problem working from both ends. So for public schools, one of the issues is we needed to get pre-service teachers trained in the science of reading. And so that's what the blueprint was about, is that higher ed was going to change how they taught pre-service teachers how to teach reading. That's going to stop that's going to help the issue going forward. We had 18,000 people that were currently in positions that we needed to work on. And so what should happen over time is that school districts should have to spend less effort on training in the science of reading, because they will have done it with their current teachers, and the new teachers will already have that experience. Now, I think there are some other things that we continue to work with higher ed on, and that would be advanced degrees in reading as well. There are a number of things where the universities and K-12 can work well together. In this particular case, in the training part, we started at two different parts, and now we're moved to the middle. Once we get the training question done, I think then we move into the next question is, how do we ensure effective implementation? And higher ed could have a part in that as well.
Which I think is why you see me keep focusing in on where we are on how many people have completed their first year and second year, because good line of questioning from everybody. Dr. Harwood, we're going to take you off the hot seat. Thank you for being here, but we reserve the right to bring you back.
You have to run to Senate Ed, but I'll be back after that.
Thank you very much. Midwest Compact is here today, and they're going to give us, I promised them 3 minutes, but I'm down to 2 because I'm looking at the clock and how many conferees we have. If you would like to say your name for the record and give us 2 minutes on the compact.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I can talk fast and I won't go through the whole packet. So some of you may be familiar with us, some of you not, but we're the Midwestern Higher Education Compact. We're one of 4 compacts in the country focused on higher education, but we're a little different because we were founded with a focus on cost savings programs. We have 2 sides of our business, cost savings programs and contracts, and policy and research. We do have a handout, I think, that's been provided to you, and if not, we'll make sure you get it as well as digitally. So we've got some pretty great data that we'll share, but the main thing I think to let you know about, we're obligated to report every year, and so this is our state visit. We've been here for 2.5 days, had a great visit so far, and we head back tonight. We have 7 commissioners, 4 legislators, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and then 3 appointed by the governor. And they're about half of our 60-member governing board are legislators, and the other half are higher ed leaders. So the big news, I think, for your state is that we save you a lot of money. For your commitment that we're very grateful for, $115,000 a year, you get about a 55-fold return on your investment. $4.6 million from distance education, technology savings because of the bulk purchasing, $1.4 million. We're really an instrumentality of state government, so we can stand in the shoes of the contractor. We do the RFP, all the work on that, and the contracts are turnkey, ready to go, whether it's Dell or Oracle. We had a property insurance program that's wound down. We still issue dividends. And we have lots of meetings and things that a number of your folks attend. So one other piece that's important is we're not a bank. We have some extra revenue from our tech programs this year. So I'm trying to talk fast. We'll have grants of up to $250,000 for each state. And in your case, I think there's an effort from the Board of Regents to focus on data systems. So I'm going to stop because I've hit my time, but I just want to express my gratitude. Kansas is the first state that joined the compact. We always enjoy our visit here. You're our first state. And for us, it's like beach weather. So please let me know if you have any questions. We'll hand this packet out to you both electronically and on paper. Okay?
Thank you. If you have anything to hand out, just give it to Michelle there.
Sure.
And we'll go from there. And it is on the S drive. Great presentation. When you had more time in appropriations, I encourage you guys to go back and watch the video footage, because there's some really great things about what's happening in Kansas, including we're doing a really good job of keeping Kansas kids here in Kansas.
You are, compared to other states. 81% of your students stay in state, and if they leave, 9% go to the Midwest, and the other 8 or 9% head elsewhere, but you do a great job keeping your students home.
So take a really good look at that slide deck. Lots of great information. We are going to move to Dr. Lane. We're just going to have a brief conversation. Dr. Lane, go ahead and start coming on up. I kind of am going to set her up by saying, have you ever gone to change your curtains on your house and then realize that your couch is completely wrong color and you want to change that too? Now imagine it's education and you start saying, we're going to change how we teach teachers. And you start getting involved in that and you have a better view and you start understanding things that you want to change. So that's why I wanted Dr. Lane to come back again today and talk about some of the conclusions that she's come to as she has worked through this process. Dr. Lane, please proceed.
Thank you very much. And with your permission, Madam, I'd like to respond to Representative Chauncey's question about why our data was different. That data comes directly from the agency. So the number that we provided, 18,698, was their number. So I'll be following up to find out why we're different. But I appreciated that question. So, and I appreciate having the opportunity to be here with you all. The Blueprint has established this past year a steering committee made up of our legislative leaders that are on the Blueprint. And we've been working over the last 6 months as a subcommittee trying to identify the major things that other states are doing that have led to improvements in their literacy performance. So in front of you, you have 2 documents. One, state literacy policy snapshot from all 50 states. That was produced by the Future Ed Company, which is a policy review organization. I'm not going to go into that, but you have that at your leisure. You also have a second report, which has many of the common themes that these other states are doing. This was produced by the Bush Literacy Foundation, and so information on page 7 is where I'd like to draw your attention. States that have made the most progress, there are 28 in the nation that were fortunate enough to receive a federal grant called a Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant. And those states include states that you hear a lot about: Mississippi, Tennessee, Virginia, Louisiana, Montana, a whole number of them. Have identified these 4 policy levers that are key in moving literacy initiatives forward. Educator preparation, which is the responsibility of higher ed, then high-quality professional learning and development, which is ongoing for our teachers who are in the field. The science changes, professional learning will be ongoing. The third thing is high-quality instructional materials that we need to ensure that our educators have the science, the curriculum that is evidence-based in their classrooms. And the fourth is screening and intervening. In this report, you'll also see information about where Kansas stacks up in that. And fortunately, we have a lot of these elements in place. What may be lacking, and I say may, I want to be bolder and say what I believe, in my professional opinion, is lacking, is a comprehensive literacy plan in Kansas where we have pre-K through 12 and higher ed working on the same plan. Much of the confusion about who's doing what in the state has come out in testimony in this committee. What's the Blueprint responsible for? What's K-12 doing? States that have made the progress have one plan, one set of goals, common strategies, metrics, and accountability for the entire education system so that we can be accountable to you, but more importantly, accountable to our communities and families. So I will stand for any questions, Representative Estes, about going deeper today or at a future point, but I want to encourage us to think about how we move toward a comprehensive plan. Of course, I can recommend also that the State Board of Ed should be leading that. Higher ed should be a strong pillar of support to move these things forward.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lane. I did have some things prepared because I wanted to clear up one point of confusion yesterday, and that was on the NAEP scores. The document that Dr. Lane had, it is kind of like if you imagine a tie and you have first, second, and third, but within each of those levels, there's many different groups. So that's how she got to 11. But when you look at the NAEP raw numbers, our rank is different when it's not exactly a tie and it's broken down. So I'm going to have research pass the chart around that shows exactly where we are. Oh, you didn't make copies. Okay, it's on the S drive. Okay, we'll be updating that because the current, we were working really hard today, and so I appreciate research. We will get that new version up on the S drive as soon as possible, and I think that's what I see over here. It's the old one, okay. Michelle, were you able to upload the new one? Because I think that came in while you were setting up the room, so. You're blocked out of K-List today. We're having Wi-Fi issues. We would really like to get that information up for the committee. This is a conversation that I said it last year. I think this committee can bring together higher ed, state board, and those in the field to have conversations about how we work together to accomplish these things. So when you get an agenda that says we're going to meet on a Friday, please know that this is what we're going to talk about. We won't do anything else on those days. We will talk in that. We'll have some roundtables. We want to give everybody a chance to be a part of that and talk about how we could move forward with a greater literacy policy. Do I have any quick questions for Dr. Lane that can't wait for a roundtable? Okay, seeing none, Dr. Lane, thank you. Is there anything that you would like to finish on?
Yes, I would, and I appreciate the comment about NAEP. You'll see the source document is the one from the Bush Institute on pages 15 to 16. My intention was not to suggest that we don't have urgency on this issue, but you can see how this data was ranked. So and my last comment is we have 55% of our kids who are reading below proficiency, and I look forward to talking about how we change our goal in the blueprint and how we move forward to that comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, I am going to return back to the hearing at hand, and revisers, did I have anything for you guys to present on this? Elena, did you? I didn't ask you for anything on this, did I? Okay, I didn't think I did. I just wanted to double check. We will go to Jason to explain the bill, and you guys can ask lots of great questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 2468 deals with tax credits for contributions made by taxpayers to scholarship granting organizations. The bill really deals with two different programs. There's a federal program and then there's the state program that you all are probably more familiar with. Section 1 of the bill is the federal program that was enacted last year in federal legislation. It provides a tax credit for taxpayers in covered states that make contributions to a qualified scholarship granting organization. Covered states are those states that have opted into the program, and so that's what Section 1 actually is. It is an opt-in provision that, if enacted into law, says the state of Kansas is electing to participate in the federal tax credit program for the scholarship granting organization contributions. Were Kansas to opt in and become a covered state, then taxpayers in this state would be able to claim up to $1,700 each tax year and a tax credit against their federal income tax liability for those contributions that they made to a scholarship granting organization. Those organizations are similar to, but distinct from, the state scholarship granting organization requirements that you may be familiar with the long-running state program. For example, under the federal program, these organizations have to give at least 10 or more eligible student scholarships, and they can't all attend the same school. So it can't be to 10 or 20 kids all at the same school. It has to be multiple schools. And eligibility for the students is based on a household income of not more than 300% of the area median gross income, which is a slightly different calculation from the state requirements. Similar requirements are at least 90% of the income for the organization has to go to scholarships. The scholarship monies can only be spent on qualified education expenses, and they must give priority to students who already have received a scholarship and their siblings. and handing out those. They also, the organization must verify the household income of the eligible student. In order for the taxpayer to claim the credit, there is a requirement that the state treasurer submit the list of scholarship granting organizations that meet those federal requirements to the federal treasurer, the federal secretary of the treasury. And so then a contribution to those scholarship granting organizations on that list would be eligible for a tax credit by the taxpayer on their federal income tax liability. Section 2 is making an amendment to the state program that you all are much more familiar with, which is a program we've had here in the state of Kansas for a number of years now, to provide a state tax credit against your state income tax liability for contributions to a scholarship granting organization. Under that program, the annual amount for the tax credit can be up to $500,000 a year for the taxpayer. But there is an aggregate annual cap on the tax credits that can be awarded of $10 million under current law. The bill looks to increase that aggregate annual cap up to $20 million. And then there's an additional provision you'll see on page 2 of the bill to provide for an automatic increase of an additional 25% on that annual cap over the previous year's cap if the total credits used exceeds 75% of whatever that annual cap is. So for example, if it goes up to, if it's at $10 million annual cap, and we have tax credits claimed in excess of $7.5 million, then there would be an automatic 25% bump up for the next year. So it would be a $12.5 million annual cap on the next year. So that is the amendment being proposed for our state program. I will also mention just briefly that there is a provision under the federal program where taxpayers cannot claim tax credit for the same contribution under both the federal and state programs. So if they if they have more than $1,700 in contributions for tax credit claims, they could claim that $1,700 on their federal income tax and then claim the balance on their state income tax form. So this would all go into effect on July 1st of this year. And with that, Madam Chair, I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Jason. Questions for our revisor? Representative Getz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Jason. On the, I just don't want to be confused, on the currently 10 million, and this bill would enact it to 20 with a total cap of 30 from the 25% preceding years. But you used the example of the 10 million up to 12 million. Does it stagger up as more is needed, or does it jump to a cap this year in 2026, what we're talking about, July 1 to 20 million?
So the bill immediately moves the cap up to 20 million starting July 1st. I use 10 million in my example because I like easy mental math. And you are correct. So that automatic cap would kick in also on that 20 million if we exceeded 75% of 20 million, up to, again, a hard cap of 30 million. So you can only increase it up till we hit that top ceiling of 30 million, and then you would need further legislative enactment to go above 30.
Thank you for the clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative McNorton. Then Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How much of the 10 million was used this year or last year? Where are we at on hitting that number?
I'm going to defer to my staff colleagues.
Okay. Where you get the answer to that question depends, because, and Gabby is in the audience for Dr. Harwood, because I think he's over in Senate Ed. The problem is when you look, where you get confusion is when you look at one report, it doesn't look like you hit the lid, but when you look at Department of Revenue's report, you do hit the lid because it's a confusion of reporting deadlines. Gabby, would you like, and I think this is an amendment that should happen so that in fairness for everybody and transparency, we fix this problem and have 2 reports instead of 1. Gabby, would you like to just pop in there for a second and address that?
Sure. I think you largely captured it. The statute requires KSDE to submit a report based on the school year. So there's a June to July report that we're required to submit. Any of the information on the tax credits goes through the Department of Revenue, and they would notify an SGO of their status on credits. I think it would be most appropriate to ask the Department of Revenue at any given time where they're at with the cap, because we don't get that information. My understanding is we did reach the cap in the last school year, though.
Thank you very much. Other question, were you done, Representative McNorton? And then let Jason finish, and then we'll go to Representative Featherston.
Just for one more point of clarification, for purposes of computing the cap and whether or not it's been exceeded or not, you would rely on the Department of Revenue's tax credit numbers. They're the ones who would calculate how much more they have to award in tax credits until they hit whatever that aggregate annual cap number would be.
Thank you. Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason, can you just tell me where we're getting this $1,700 from?
That's in the federal legislation.
So it's
The
this,
federal legislation is not in the bill. The bill, new section 1 simply is the opt-in to that section 25F of the Federal Internal Revenue Code. I can provide copies of section 25F if you'd like to, but that's it's that section of the Internal Revenue Code that has the $1,700 limit on the federal tax credit claims.
Representative Featherston, did that answer your question? You're welcome. Representative McNorton had a follow-up? And then we'll go to Representative Hubert.
So just to make sure on the federal credit, they can only do that if we opt in, or is that still available even if we don't do anything?
The covered state, so for scholarship granting organizations operating in the state of Kansas that you want to make a contribution to and then claim a federal tax credit on, Kansas needs to opt into the federal program and become a covered state.
Okay, thank you, madam. Thank you.
You're welcome. Representative Hubert?
Just to follow up on that, what does it take, who needs to approve the opt-in? Does the state board do that, or can we do, how do we opt in?
By adopting new section 1 and enacting it into law, that would effectuate the opt-in to the federal program.
In this legislation?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Jason? Jason, I do have one, because I want to make sure that I clarify my understanding. If a school district has a foundation and we opt in, they would be eligible for tax credits, to use it to the tax credits.
No, private foundations are not scholarship granting organizations under the federal act.
But could they create one?
I think they could create a scholarship granting organization, a 501c3 scholarship granting organization, and as long as it met the qualifications for that organization under the federal law, then yes, contributions to that organization could be then claimed as a tax credit under the federal law.
Okay, thank you, because I always like to help our foundations as well. They do a lot of good work. Any other questions for Jason? Then we are going to move right on into testimony, and we'll continue with proponent. And in the interest of time, I'm so sorry, I think I need, we're going to do a very tight 2 minutes. When your time is up, please finish the sentence you're on, and that's not time for a run-on sentence. And James Franco.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, thank you very much for the opportunity to present. Again, you have my written testimony before you. I want to add a little bit of what Jason said about what this program is and what this program is not. I am exclusively talking about the existing state tax credit scholarship program that we have had since 2014. It has been expanded and amended on 2 different occasions in the state, and I think we'll hear this, we just did. We hit the cap for the total credits claimed in tax year or calendar year 2025 just last month. So think of it in 2 buckets. This is not a program where I get an individual credit for sending my kid to a private school. This is not like a bill that was in the Senate last year that was to that effect. This is not an education savings account. This is me giving money to one of these qualified 501c3 organizations that is determined to be a scholarship granting organization. There's reporting requirements, all sorts of fun stuff like that with the State Department of Education. I contribute to that, then I get a 75% credit on my state income tax liability. And that nonprofit, that SGO, gives scholarships up to $8,000 for kiddos to attend a private school somewhere in the state. And it has to be a private school that is accredited or is working towards accreditation in good faith. This was a change that was made just a couple of years ago, and that is not required to be state accreditation. Little Johnny applies to the SGO, says, hey, I want to go to this school. The SGO sends that application to the State Department of Education and says, is little Johnny eligible? And it actually can't be my kid as a contributor to the SGO. It has to be to another child. This program has existed for 10 years. It's grown steadily, and each and every year we have helped more kids achieve the right educational fit. Because as you all know, there's no one system that's going to serve each and every individual kid in this state equally well. And this puts educational freedom within reach of more families. Thank you, and I'll stand for questions.
You had, with 4 seconds left. Any questions for Mr. Franco? Seeing none, thank you very much for being with us again. We will now go to Vincent Ung, and if please correct, I think I got it wrong last year too. I apologize. Anch, thank you. Welcome to committee.
Thank you.
You may begin.
Committee members and Madam Chairman, my name is Vincent Anch. I'm the Executive Director for the Catholic Education Foundation based in Kansas City, Kansas, and work for the Archdiocese in representing 42 schools in 21 counties throughout Northeast Kansas. We stretch from Emporia all the way up to Seneca and Marysville, and of course here in Kansas City, and supporting the state tax credit program. Our 42 schools and our counties, we are 100% in favor of this. We did hit the cap. Every SGO in the state of Kansas received an email in mid-December saying the cap is met, and we had to turn away donors that came in after that. Collectively, we turned away over $1 million in donations in those last few weeks of December for these credits. My organization alone had to turn away $90,000 just because there were no more credits. If you look back at the history, this program has grown significantly in the last 3 years, and we're projected to do even more than $10 million next year. So this bill would bump that up to $20 million and take care of us, we think, for a number of years. And as for the federal tax credit program, anybody can donate if the state opts in up to $1,700, but they can give a smaller amount. It's up to the SGO to determine if it's $500 or $200, but it's only up to $1,700 per person. And those scholarships are then awarded to both private and public school kids. So literally thousands of public school kids could get a $1,700 scholarship and pay for a tutor, academic coaching, textbooks, anything that they would need, software. So it benefits our state greatly. All the states surrounding Kansas, including Missouri, Nebraska, Colorado, and Oklahoma, have announced they are opting in. And if we don't opt in, our citizens can give to SGOs in their states and lose those dollars, which we expect to be millions of dollars. Just with the $10 million in tax credits, our 11 SGOs hit the cap, and that's a state cap of 75% credits. Federal is 100%, so we think we could hit even more of that and help more public and private school
Thank
kids.
you. You are out of time. Thank you so much. Any questions for Mr. Anch? Ms. Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm looking at your testimony. It said you were not able to offer over 300 scholarships to high-risk students, and I'm looking at your fundraiser from this year that said you raised $3.6 million. So how could that $3.6 million not cover these 300 children?
I believe my testimony said of all the SGOs combined in the state of Kansas, we turned away $1 million, which would, with $3,000 average grade school scholarships, would be 300 kids. that we cannot now give scholarships to for the spring. We'd have to start all over for next school year.
Representative, did that answer your question?
So how does your $3.6 million not cover those children?
Where did you get the 3.6? $3.6 million was raised by a black tie gala. Well, it's not black tie, it's a gala that we raised, but has nothing to do with the tax credits. That's the Catholic Education Foundation's private side that also raises the money for scholarships. It has nothing to do with tax credits, never will.
Did you have a follow-up? I do. How many, what, in a ballpark percentage, what percentage of children who attend your diocese are scholarshiped, or their tithe is their scholarship?
In our organization, we primarily focus on the schools with the highest poverty rates, and that's about half of the schools. So there's 22 schools that we call CEF schools. Their average poverty rate is 40%, and we have 7 schools that are over 80% poverty. Some here in Topeka, KCK mostly, Emporia is one of them.
Okay, so you have a lot of kids to cover out of that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Representative McNorton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's also in your written testimony, you put in there that there's no cost whatsoever for the state for this program.
Yes, for the...
So if we're given a tax credit of $20 million or an additional 10, where's that money coming from? It's not coming, it's coming out of the state SGF, right?
Yeah, so the federal tax credit program that's up to $1,700 has nothing to do with the state. Donors or citizens in the state of Kansas give that money to an SGO. The SGO gives it directly to the families, the students. The state is not involved in any way. So the money comes from the citizens. If we don't opt in, those citizens can give the money to another state and get that same tax credit. That's not the case for the state tax credits. That is state tax credits, which comes out of the general funds and not the education budget fund.
True. Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Representative Ballard.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to follow up on a previous question. If you have this black tie or your gala, what's the purpose of this event?
It's to raise money for scholarships for low-income families.
Okay. And you use all of that money that you do in order for that purpose?
Yeah, all that money is restricted to scholarships within the Archdiocese. And so we have more scholars on a CEF private scholarship program than we do on the tax credit program. So we have to raise more money outside the tax credits. And the goal is to make that more equal so we can fund even more kids. We also are allowed to stack scholarships on top. If a kid gets a $2,000 tax credit scholarship, we can add another $1,000 or $2,000 from our private side if we have it.
That was the other half of my question. Thank you very much.
Representative Schreiber, and then we're going to move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for the testimony. Your response to the previous question from Chairwoman was how many schools were low income?
22.
22. And what is the total population of those 22 schools?
Could I refer to our superintendent? I do not know that number. Okay. It's Dr. Vince Cascone. Total students in our CEF schools?
In the CEF schools, so we have a total of 14,000. In the CEF schools, it's about
9,000 of.
I'm sorry. In those 22 schools?
The 22 schools, I said that backwards, so it'd be about 5,000.
In the 22 schools. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. We will move on to Scarlett Acosta.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Kansas House Education Committee. This is my story. Scholarships are the foundation of any school. Without them, there are no students. They play a vital part in the lives of many students, including mine. My family does not have excess money. My parents came here from Mexico looking for the American dream. They wanted a better future for their children and sacrificed everything for us. To be able to attend a private Catholic school is a privilege in my eyes. I have been attending Bishop Ward High School on a scholarship and am currently a junior. Before going to a private Catholic school, I had gone to public school my entire life. I made the switch before going into my 8th grade year. I had previously gone to a public school in Overland Park. My mental health started a spiral. I ended up getting severe depression and anxiety my 7th grade year and would go to therapy once a week for a year. My grades were terrible and I wasn't making the best decisions. There would be occasions when I would go to the bathroom and have panic attacks. Once my parents realized what was going on, they decided to put me in a private Catholic school for a year just to test things out. It ended up being one of the best decisions they could have made. I went to Our Lady of Unity in Kansas City, Kansas, and my grades and mental health drastically improved. I felt like I belonged, and I ended up making some of the most memories and friendships there. My faith has grown tremendously, and so have I as a person. I've made friendships that have grown my confidence, and I've become outgoing. Had my parents not made that decision, I don't think I would be here standing talking to all of you. Bishop Ward has provided me with more opportunities that I could ever dream of in an education beyond words. Being able to attend school is a gift. As you know, not everyone can attend the school due to financial limitations. Choosing to opt in to 2468 ensure greater access to opportunities for Kansas students across all enrollment types, including public, private, and religious schools. If we decide not to opt in, Kansas will most likely send their money to our neighboring states. Opting in allows us students of Kansas to have a better chance of an education. The changes proposed in HB 2468 will allow more students like me to benefit and students throughout the state, helping them reach their full potential. In closing, I ask you that you please support HB 2468. Thank you again for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you very much. You did a wonderful job. What grade are you in?
I'm a junior, so I'm in 11th.
Excellent. And what are you thinking about for your future?
I've been thinking like physical therapist, probably.
Good. I need one. We love having young people come. Do we have questions for Scarlett? Scarlett, thank you for being with us today. We have a rule about applauding, but we break that rule for kids because you young people are willing to come and do what many adults are not and come and be here. So thank you for being with us today.
Opportunity.
We go next to Dr. Jamie Finkeldye. Thank you so much. It's nice to. I used to be good at it. I don't know what's happened. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Representative Estes and the House Committee. I'm Jamie Finkeldye. I'm the Associate Superintendent for the Diocese of Wichita, so much like Vince's counterpart in Kansas City. So we have 38 schools in the Diocese of Wichita, about 9,000 students. Of those, 2,400 of them are on free and reduced lunch, or about 27%. And of those, about 1,200 received scholarships last year through the what we call Support for Catholic Schools for our organization. So we raised $3.4 million last year, and as Vince said, on December 19th, we hit the $10 million limit, and we had to turn away gifts after that. And so we've had slow, steady growth over the last 8 years, and we're just asking for that steady growth to be able to continue, that we can continue to raise the money each year, because if we don't raise it, we're going to hit it earlier in December next year, and then November is just going to keep backing up until we have a chance to increase this. So we just ask for your permission to do that. And in terms of the federal legislation, again, much like Vince said, we are very supportive of that. It can help public schools, but it'll help our private schools as well in having the $1,700 credit, and we hope that you'll support that. With that, I stand for questions.
Thank you. Questions for our conferee? Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Has your diocese started charging tuition that you haven't charged for the last 30 years?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions for our conferee? Seeing none, thank you so much. Appreciate you being here with us. Our next two conferees are online. Superintendent Trina Delgado.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the House Education Committee. I am Superintendent Trina Delgado from the Diocese of Dodge City. I cannot express to you enough what a true game changer this state tax credit has been for so many of our families and students. Our diocese, particularly our schools in far western Kansas, in Garden City and Dodge City, are a real reflection of the melting pot that has made Kansas and America such a wonderful place to live. In our Catholic school system, we have students who speak over half a dozen different languages or dialects. The nature of the program and our students on scholarship all come from low-income families, what the state of Kansas describes as high-risk students. Our Catholic community parents are deeply committed to ensuring the best possible education for their children. Sometimes this education is at the public schools throughout Western Kansas. In fact, most Catholic families have their children in the public systems. We have no Catholic high school in our diocese. We have a stake in the public schools' vitality as well. Please make no mistake, we are very supportive that we want all schools to be fully funded. My husband is a public school teacher and coach. He and his dedicated co-professionals and students in their care deserve fully funded schools. But for many other families, including those of the students behind me, the best fit, the place where their students thrive best, is at one of our 6 Catholic schools in our diocese. The number of economically disadvantaged or free and reduced students in our diocese continues to grow yearly, 42% as a district this school year, with some schools in Garden and Dodge as high as 80 and 60%. We are proud that our Catholic school families represent the communities that we live in. Many of the parents of our students who work on the line of a beef processing plant. While there is dignity in this work, these parents are intensely committed to providing their children with additional opportunities for different career options. The parents' goal is to put their children in a position of choice versus circumstance. Opting into the federal tax credit program provides even more opportunities.
Superintendent, you're out of time. Would you like to stand for questions?
Yes.
Thank you. Questions for our conferee? See, they're going to let you off easy today. Thank you. I think I recall you being here last year or having some really great students last year. So thank you for the work that you do. We will next go to Andrea Hillibert. Oh, Andrea, I thought you were online, but you're here in person. Thank you so much. That's okay.
Do I need to put, okay. Thank you, Madam Chair Estes and committee, for allowing me to testify in favor of House Bill 2468. My name is Andrea Hillibert. I've been a Kansas educator for 33 years. You have my written testimony, and I'll endeavor not to repeat that for you. Our educational heritage is not set in stone. It's a compass that points the way. As educators, we adapt, we do not retreat, we build bridges, not walls. We respond with creativity, not fear. School choice is a creative approach to supporting Kansas families, and it is working. I believe the time has come to increase the cap for tax credits that benefit low-income students. Where access to educational choice remains a privilege, we're obliged to push back to that, to open doors. Losing children and families cannot be acceptable, and I believe Kansas should opt into the federal tax credit program. Keeping Kansas money in Kansas will help us to view the differences in how families choose to educate their children, not as a burden, not as a competition, but resources that encourage shared learning and collaboration. People that believe this legislation creates division, I think they're operating from a place of fear and finite opportunities. In education, we have always been called to be bold and do what is best for children and families. Questions about the best way to implement school choice legislation will fall to this group to answer, but there cannot be a question that this is truly what's best for Kansas families. I urge you to support House Bill 2468. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you, and I'll stand for questions.
Questions for the conferee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Usually I go to neutral, and I notice there are no names on the neutral list, but there should have been. Erica Donalds was a neutral, so if we could make sure we correct that in the record, then we'll move on to in-person opponent testimony. And the first name that I have is Timothy Graham. Are we going to hear another great Catholic school story?
No. And note to self, don't try to do this at 1:30 without having lunch. So where's the EMT? All right. So Tim Graham, that's my name, and I'm the Director of Government Relations for the Kansas National Education Association, KNEA, as you hear it. And we are the proud teachers union in Kansas. We represent nearly 22,000 educators across the state. In my testimony, you will see how our members adopt positions, and I've also included references to those positions as they appear in our internal book of resolutions. My testimony reflects the concerns we raise every time bills like this are proposed and debated. So please read it. We have been consistent, we've been sincere, and we raise these objections in good faith. Nothing there should surprise you. In the little time that I have here, I do want to stress in our opposition, our longstanding philosophical opposition to taxpayer money going to private schools that operate with less accountability and are not obligated to serve every student. These concerns do not change with the federal opt-in in this bill. If anything, they are exacerbated by the uncertainties and the concerns with the federal program. Despite our strong opposition to this bill, I want to be clear that KNEA remains a resource to this committee and to this legislature. This should not be taken personally. We are always willing to work with you in good faith on policies that support educators and strengthen public education. And as a resource, let me end with this. I'll leave you with an idea. If the goal is to use tax policy to support education, this legislature could consider a refundable tax credit for educators, particularly lower paid teachers who are paying out of pocket to supply their classrooms or who are struggling to repay student loans while working full-time in Kansas public schools. I'm not suggesting that that inclusion would change our opposition to this bill, but it would probably meaningfully soften up this rhetoric and let educators know that there are things up here that are still in their favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Graham. Any questions for our conferee? Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tim, do you know of any education foundation that supports public schools that raised $3.6 million in one evening?
No, but admittedly, I wouldn't be the expert on that.
Any other questions? Representative Schmoy, and thank you guys on the end for going extra high.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just clarifying here. Federal, as far as the federal program, they are already doing this. They're going to use taxpayer money. So KNEA is effectively telling us that we don't want that to benefit Kansas kids because they're going to anyway. So just not for Kansas kids.
Yeah, I could see how you could draw that connection, but that's not our position. The same argument could be used on the expansion of Medicaid. That's the argument we've used for a long time. So we are philosophically opposed to taxpayer money going to private organizations.
Okay, so you're for it on one side and against it on the other. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll move along. Thank you, Mr. Graham. Our next conferee is Jim Carlskin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, committee. I'm Jim Carlskin. I'm with the United School Administrators of Kansas, and this is the first time in this session I've been able to talk to you. Some are new, but the rest have seen us. In fact, most of the people here, it's kind of like Old Home Week with the opponents and proponents for this. But I wanted to stress that the United School Administrators of Kansas and myself personally, we are not opposed to private schools or parochial schools. In fact, I was a parochial school administrator and teacher for 14 years, as well as in public schools for a lot of years. And I was with the Archdiocese of Kansas City in Kansas. Our main opposition, as far as United School Administrators is concerned, is using tax dollars for private schools. It is a concern of ours and mine that this bill does not ensure equitable access for students with disabilities, English language learners, or at-risk populations. We hear the word school choice. I hate to say it, but this is school's choice. when it comes to, this type of legislation. As I said, we don't wish to, we don't like to see shifting funds from, towards private school scholarships. One thing too, and with committing Kansas to this program, it is a brand-new federal program. We don't know what's coming, next year, the year after, whatever. I would just say, caution this committee to tread lightly when you're making those choices to commit us to a federal program. I see my time is nearly out, so I won't take any more of your time. My testimony is in your packets or available to you. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to stand for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carlskent. Do we have any questions for the conferee? Representative Boatman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You had mentioned that and I'll try to paraphrase, you had mentioned that the oversight of the education of disadvantaged and disabled children was different between public and private institutions. Are you able to expound on that? Like, what's the difference?
Well, from a personal standpoint, I know that many parochial and private schools are not able to offer special ed services to students, or because of the fact that they don't have the staff. And it's nothing against, the private or parochial schools. They just don't have the staff to serve special needs students. There's others that, oftentimes schools, if they get a kid who's somewhat of a knucklehead, he doesn't stay. And so they become more selective than what the public schools provide.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Representative Schmoy.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you yet this year. Just to clarify, when we're talking about the fact that private schools don't have to take special needs students and maybe more challenging students, what we're actually talking about is the parents choose the best school choice for their child. When you say something like, well, they don't have to take, as a parent, I would be making sure that I selected the correct placement for my child. And if they didn't have the paras or the needs being met for my child, I'm not going to choose that school. So I'm just wondering why that's part of the testimony if it actually is the parent's choice.
The school still has the choice of whether they want that student to accept that student or not. It's not the parent's choice, it's the school's choice.
But if they don't have the ability to meet that student's needs, the parent is not going to choose to put their child there.
In all due respect, Representative, I've been in that situation where I've had to say no.
Okay, thank you.
Representative withdrawn. Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To follow up, so a child could be removed from a private school against the parent's wishes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Just wanted to, you mentioned languages, and I think one of our previous conferees mentioned something around 30 languages at their school. So just.
Was it 6?
I think she said more, but we can go back and.
I know in Kansas City, Kansas, they've got more than 70 different languages in the school. So yeah, it could very well be.
Yeah. So I think there are some of
Some do. I'm not saying they're not.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we're clear on that. And we might have legislative research tomorrow address, because I know there are some special ed services delivered in the private schools, that some private school students have an IEP. Let's refresh ourselves on that.
And to qualify, Madam Chair, when I was with the parochial school, we sent students to the public school for services that had an IEP.
And I believe funding followed that student, correct? And we can get refreshed on that tomorrow, because it's an interesting thing how we work that out. So thank you very much. Appreciate you being here today. We have some more conferees online, and I will move to Judith Deedy from the Game On for Kansas Schools. Judith? Do we see Judith online? She is online, okay. All right, we'll go to Lynn Rogers, and if we can message Judy and get her lined up. Lynn, welcome to committee.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. It's good to see so many of you. Thank you. I am representing KIFA, the Kansas Interfaith Action. We are an interfaith, multi-faith organization that advocates on a number of issues, including public education. Public funding of private and religious education, whether via vouchers or educational savings accounts, or here, tax deductibility of donations to scholarship funds, undermines the commitment to public education. It does not improve academic achievement. And one of the things I wanted to highlight on my written, I won't talk a lot about it, but I do want to highlight what the comes from the United Methodist Foundations, was that they do not support the expansion of or the strengthening of private schools with public funds. And they are particularly feel it important for parents. They have the right to send their children to private schools, but those public funds should not be used to push the particular religious beliefs of someone else. So again, public dollars should not fund religious instruction for parents that are not of the same religion. The state really has no compelling interest in funding private and parochial education. In opposite, in fact, and HB 2468 is another effort to support them in doing that. One other thing I would mention, as a volunteer in Wichita Public Schools for over 34 years, I see what's going on in our classrooms on a regular basis. And I want to add one other item. As a former state treasurer, regarding the bill that says the state treasurer will provide, a list to the Secretary of the Treasury, they really do not have the staff nor the state general funding to provide that. I'm sure they'll be willing to do it because most of the staff over there are very dedicated, but it is one of those things that is not their specialty. And so I think it's just something to be aware of. I will stand for questions or, again, encourage you all to read our written testimony.
Thank you, Representative Steele.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If a person gives to a 501c3, they're able to get a federal tax write-off. So if they're giving to this particular organization and giving a federal tax write-off, is that something that you have a problem with, or are we having a problem with all 501c3s?
No, I didn't say anything like that about the 501c3. I think the Section 1, which is separate from the Section 2, Section 1 is a federal case, and as already mentioned, it's already passed. I personally don't support it. I didn't support it when it was passed. I think my comment from the Secretary or the State Treasurer is that they have to come up with the list of who is approved and who isn't. They don't have the resources to research that to determine who is legitimate and who is not. Section 2, I think the main part there is that expanding it from 10 million to 20 million is, instead of a $7.5 million hit to our state general fund, it now automatically becomes a 15 million, ultimately to a $22.5 million hit when it gets to the 30 million. Again, those credits that they're providing to their donors are, being paid for by all of us out of our state general fund.
May I ask one more? I'm struggling to understand about taking taxpayer dollars and funneling them through. I don't understand the reasoning, because we use STAR bonds for economic development for public-private partnerships.
We do, and I think, again, that's a question you as representatives need to face. The difference is that you have, and the state has, a little bit more control on, STAR bonds in terms of when they're approved, again, through the Department of Commerce. that's a different discussion. But in this case, it's a donor that provides up to $500,000. They can decide that 75% of that is not going to go to the state general fund before you, even as a representative, get to decide how to spend the money on what the highest priorities are. That's money that just comes straight out of the state general fund as a tax credit. And again, a tax credit is different than a deduction. I think you as representatives should contain and control the use and the spending. What you're saying is that you're going to give another $7.5 million tax credit before you get to talk about all the other needs of the state general fund.
Thank you, Convery. We're going to go ahead and move on because we've got about 7 minutes left, and I've got 4 conferees left. And Shannon, I do realize I accidentally skipped you. And it's interesting that you mentioned the fiscal note because we were waiting for the fiscal note to hopefully load up to KLIS, but the treasurer's office is here to give the fiscal note, and we'll have a different perspective to offer. Let's get through the people online, and then we'll go to Shannon. Judith, can you hear us now?
Yes, sorry, had a little technical difficulty.
Understandable. You may begin. And if you could be super fast for me, that would be very helpful.
I'll do my best. Chair Estes, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. I hope you'll read my written testimony, but here are 3 main points I'd like to make today. First, Kansas should not participate in the federal tax credit scholarship program or double or triple the cap on the Kansas program, while general and special education are not fully funded. Federal tax dollars should not be diverted to private schools at a time when the federal government is pulling back on its support for public education and falling further behind in SPED funding. In Kansas, SPED is also currently significantly underfunded. Second, we oppose this bill because studies show that voucher programs lead to decreased academic achievement, especially as they grow. We don't collect academic data for students in the Kansas program, but we should not ignore data from multiple states showing that these programs lead to significant decreases in student performance. There's also substantial evidence of higher attrition rates, fiscal mismanagement, fraud, and lack of adequate academic services in these other programs, not in all schools, but in some schools. We oppose the diversion of more tax dollars without taxpayer oversight and measures to protect vulnerable students. Finally, we oppose this bill because these programs, as currently designed, fund preferences and not necessarily needs. There are no requirements that students make a showing that they are not able to be successful in their current district or by utilizing open enrollment. There are no prohibitions on using a voucher to go from a higher achieving school, public school, to a lower achieving private school or show that they are achieving at a higher level once transferring. In prior years, we've heard testimony about preferring religious education or liking offerings of a private school better than those of their local public school. While we may understand wanting to make those choices, we should not use state funds for them, just as we do not give people money to go to a country club instead of their local park or a bookstore instead of their library. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. Any questions for the conferee? Representative Featherston.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to move this from your written testimony here to your public testimony. Could you tell us what 300% of the median income in Johnson County is?
Yes, it is over $300,000.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any more questions. We will move to Mary Sinclair with the Kansas PTA. Mary, are you there?
Yes.
You may begin.
Mary Sinclair, Kansas PTA. Thank you for the opportunity to share our concerns in opposition to the expansion of this tax credit, primarily because of its use of public funds to subsidize the private school system. We support policies that keep public funds in public schools where 90 to 95% of Kansas students attend and all are welcome. Tripling the program cap puts much more pressure on the state budget when we know that reimbursement for excess special education costs are well below the statutory rate of 92%. Districts are forced to transfer general education funds and revenue collected through local property taxes to cover those expenditures. Up to $1,400 per student is taken off the top of base state aid in districts across some counties that could be used for things like smaller class sizes and more mental health supports, as we heard from a previous conferee. Similarly, we oppose participation in the federal tax credit program to subsidize the private school system. Our U.S. congressional members have yet to meet their obligation to fund mandated services for students with disabilities, as well as supporting the federal title programs for our at-risk students. Again, let's prioritize the fiduciary obligations in the schools where nearly 500,000 Kansas students attend. Also noted in our testimony, there is no evidence or compelling need to expand this voucher program. First, after a decade of implementation, no student impact data has ever been reported, no legislative audit conducted on the educational progress and outcomes of those students who applied for, in addition to those who received scholarships, in comparison to similar public school students. We also know peer-reviewed research from other states on voucher programs are finding that at-risk students are being harmed, being transitioned out and returned to public schools a year or two behind academically from their peers. Let's also recognize that the new 2023 baseline for Kansas public schools, when total state aid remedy for general education, Gannon agreement, hit our school budgets, and the intensive COVID disruptions were behind us. Note that record percentage of Kansas students are graduating high school. Record number of students are taking post-secondary courses, earning record numbers of post-secondary education credits. Over 70% of third graders can
Mary,
not only read.
you've reached your time. Thank you.
All right.
Any questions for Mary? Seeing none, Mary, thank you for being with us again.
You bet.
Before I go to Shannon, I did mention the fiscal note, and the State Treasurer's Office is here, and we will get that uploaded. Would you like to tell us what the fiscal note would be, please? And if so, please go to the podium.
Tom Tracy, Deputy Assistant State Treasurer at the State Treasurer's Office. Right now, we estimate the fiscal note to be minimal. Matter of fact, we'll use existing resources. Our understanding is that we will be passing the list on to U.S. Treasury. So,
Hey, I just finished testimony, so I'm going to pull up my laptop. and join
Someone
in.
online, please, needs to
Yeah,
mute yourself.
cut off.
Thank
2
you.
minutes.
Thank you. Tom, thank you for the fiscal note. We'll get that uploaded as soon as Kalis decides to play nice with us. Shannon, I wanted to make sure I got you fit in today. Thank you. Erin, I'm sorry. Shannon, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Shannon Kimball, representing the Kansas Association of School Boards. I know you have heard from us before on our position on vouchers. It's a foundational policy commitment of our members, 2,000 approximately school board members locally elected across the state, that we want to make sure that our policies are strengthening and supporting our public schools in Kansas. We appear today to invite you to join our members in ensuring that taxpayer dollars for education are directed exclusively to public schools that are accountable to students, parents, and their communities, and also available to each and every student in the state of Kansas. A couple quick things to highlight. I think a number of the opponents have touched on things that's in the written testimony. I encourage you to read it. It includes the text of our member adopted platform. I need to make a correction, Chair Estes. I realize with the quick turnaround, I made a math error in my testimony. I said that the cap could be reached within 2 fiscal years. I used 20 to 30 million instead of 10 to 30 million. My apologies to the committee. If you do the math, that could be within about 5 fiscal years. You would be increasing the amount of state expenditure out of state general fund by 200% by expanding the cap on the state tax credit voucher program. And again, it doesn't have any of the typical guardrails, financial or academic, that apply to public schools in our state. As to the federal program, it also lacks those guardrails. The Treasury is still writing regulations, so we don't even know what the rules are going to be for this program beyond what it says in the text of the statute. I would encourage you to at least, at the very minimum, wait for those regulations to be released so that we know what we are getting into. But to contextualize the impact to the federal budget of this program, it is estimated that in the first year, it will remove $38.6 billion approximately from the federal treasury, and over 10 years, as much as $134 billion. So when you think about the special education shortfall at the federal level, which we've all talked about because that would help us close our gap here in Kansas. I'm sorry, I misstated in my notes. The first year of the tax credit voucher at the federal level, $10.6 billion. The shortfall for special education to get to 40% federally is $38.6 billion. I'm trying to hurry and I'm making mistakes. My apologies.
You always do a beautiful job. I'm so sorry for rushing you.
It's okay. Let me just say that if they would capture that federal tax money instead of and use it for special ed, it could go a very long way to meeting the existing obligations that they have, and that is part of our objection. Thank you very much for your time, and I will ensure that I do this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Rabbi Reber here? I don't see him, and I have his name on one list, but not the other. So I will go to Aaron Woods. I skipped over Aaron on WebEx. Aaron, I apologize. Are you still here?
I am.
Aaron,
Thank you.
Aaron,
No
please
worries.
begin. Thank you.
Okay. You know what? I am, since we're short on time, instead of fully reading my testimony, I'll just give an overview, and because some of it touches on what others had said. And I'll just add a few things that I wanted to be sure to share. I'm a parent, by the way, of Aaron Woods, and I'm a parent of 2 recent graduates of Shawnee Mission School District. And the main thing that I was highlighting in my testimony was that issue of neither the federal government or state fully funding special education. So not wanting to divert more public funds when we're have that situation going on. But I did just want to kind of remind people that, public schools serve every student, including those with the most complex needs, and private school students needing special education or gifted services. So when special education is underfunded, districts are forced to pull money from general education, which affects all students. And I had some personal examples, just a friend whose, daughter attends private school, but the private school was unable to meet her son's needs. So they had to turn to the public schools for his education. And I also just my biggest concern as the special education shortfall continues to grow is that we will return to the days when my kids were in elementary school and general education was underfunded. And during that time, we saw class sizes grow, schools close, nurses splitting time between buildings, and specials were cut. Parents were even helping clean classrooms as janitors' hours had to be reduced. So just a reminder of what this can look like if we continue to kind of underfund SPED. These local school budgets are being stretched thin, so I urge you to oppose HB 2468 and to not opt into the federal voucher program or expand the tax credit scholarship program in Kansas until we invest in our public schools that serve all students.
Aaron, thank you so much for being with us today. Any questions for Aaron? Representative Chauncey? And then we'll go to bill introductions and adjourn.
I'll be quick. Just real quick, I guess this is open for private donations to get tax credits for this, and I'm just wondering, are we, all the opponents to this, so just a question for all of you is, are we trying to discourage people from donating money to help the education fund unless it goes solely to to public education? So are we asking people to seek to donate their funds other places rather than education, or are we looking to try to increase our education for Kansas, is my question.
Aaron?
I think, just pretty much, I just kind of believe that our public dollars should go to public schools, and the donation, the return on a donation that people get through these scholarship granting programs are, much larger than what anyone would get for a donation they would make to pretty much any other charitable organization.
Thank you. Any other questions? Seeing none, I do have Aaron, thank you, and that closes our hearing. I do have a bill to introduce, 26 RS 3007, and that is the Credit Act. Is there any objection? The Credit Act. I'm sorry. 3007. Seeing no objection, the bill is entered. Does anyone else have a bill to introduce? All right, thank y'all. It was a very speedy day. Sometimes we get more done than I thought we will, and sometimes we get less. And so thank y'all for being patient. Have a wonderful day. We are adjourned.